Hey everybody, people are still joining, but as they come in, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is Jenna Nilo. I am the Director of Marketing and Outreach for Illinois Digital Educators Alliance. Thank you so much to everybody who's here today, and happy Teachers Appreciation Week. You guys are doing so much, so above and beyond the call of duty right now. It's amazing, and hopefully you are taking advantage of some of the perks of this week, both with IDEA and then with everybody else out there who is trying to support all of the fantastic educators that are out there, and again, going above and beyond, especially over these last few weeks. Today we have a webinar with one of our partners, Read Naturally Live, and in a minute I'm going to turn things over to Ben. But before we do that, I want to go over a few housekeeping items and then give you a challenge for today, which is how we're going to go ahead and give away our $100 gift card later today. So first, housekeeping items. If everybody's doing awesome today, if you could keep yourself muted and then your video off, as soon as I'm done talking, I'm going to do the same. And then that way, Ben gets the spotlight, and kind of no background noise, no dogs barking in the background, no kids asking for anything. So all that good stuff, I'm going to do the same thing. So in just a minute, I will turn myself off. We do, however, welcome interaction throughout the webinar. So go ahead and use that chat window. I'm sure everybody's been on a Zoom by now, but if you haven't, it's in your bottom of your screen. You'll see a little chat bubble. And if you click that, it will open up your chat window, and it's just kind of a direct message thing. You can message someone directly, you can message everyone, and I will be monitoring the back channel for Ben. And when appropriate, I will go ahead and interrupt with your questions and things so that we can get all of those answered. So definitely, please, again, we welcome interaction. We encourage it. Just go ahead and use that chat window, and we will get everybody's questions answered. And I think that's, we are recording. So if you are looking for the recording to share with others, definitely I'm going to be sending out the recording tomorrow morning. So just look for that. It'll be the recording, the chat file, and then the resource, the slideshow that Ben is sharing today, which in a minute, I'm also going to put in the chat window. Ben wanted you guys to have it in case anybody wanted to follow along with a hard copy of it, or I guess a split screen hard copy while he's going through it. So I'll throw that in the chat window in a second. But Ben, if you want to click to the next screen. So our challenge for you today, Read Naturally has been so generous, especially during Teachers Appreciation Week, that they are going to offer or gift, sweepstake, I don't, gift. Gift, yeah. Giveaway. They're going to give away, there you go, a $100 gift card to use on their product. So here's your challenge. While you are on this webinar today, I want you to tweet out anything. Tweet out what you're learning during the webinar. Tweet out how you might use Read Naturally or Read Naturally Live within your classroom, within your setting. Tweet out how you're currently using it, and you're just getting a refresher right now so that you can see any new great things. So anything that you can do. The challenge is, though, you have to tag both at Read Naturally and at IDEA Illinois. That way then we can find them all. And at the end of our session today, I'm going to scroll through all of the ones that I find, and we're going to pick a winner at the end of the session today. So make sure you hang out till the end for that so that we can get that to you. And then all the excitement. So definitely tweet that out throughout today's session. Take a picture of the screen. That might be awesome too. Tammy, I'm sorry that you do not have Twitter, just Facebook. If you want to throw it on Facebook, maybe I'll check Facebook too. We'll kind of see where we get the more interaction. We do only have one gift card to give away though, so unfortunately it's got to go one place or the other. So please go ahead, do that throughout today's session. Before I turn things over to Ben, I am going to pop that link into the chat if you did want to follow along to the PDF. that's where you can get it. Unfortunately, you do have to copy and paste the link into a URL browser. Zoom has taken out the link ability, I think because of all that Zoom bombing early on. So you do have to copy and paste that into a web browser. So that will get you to the PDF of today's presentation. And other than that, without further ado, I am going to go ahead and turn things over to Ben Weisner from Read Naturally. Ben, thanks so much. Thanks for your patience while I did all my stuff, and I will interrupt as things come through. So thanks.
Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate it. And I want to echo Jenna's appreciation of educators, not just during this week or yesterday, whenever Teacher Appreciation Day was, but throughout the year. I think it's like Mother's Day. We only appreciate mothers on Mother's Day. No, of course, teachers work year round, and we appreciate them year round. So thank you for all the work that you do. And thank you for joining me today. My name is Ben Weisner. I'm with Read Naturally, and my job is to support educators who are using our programs. Lately, I've been looking for ways, along with everyone else, that we can innovate and support our students who are navigating this new landscape of learning from home that we're experiencing. I'll include some ideas for using Read Naturally Live in a distance learning model during this presentation. So if you are using Read Naturally or Read Naturally Live, that information I think will be particularly useful to you. So in terms of my agenda, I'll be covering the following topics. I'll start out with a high-level overview of fluency and why that's important. I'll get into an overview of the Read Naturally Live program. I'll do a live demo of a student's experience using Read Naturally Live. And then I'll be talking about adaptations for distance learning. And then questions, I'll stop periodically throughout the presentation to see if any questions have come in through chat, and Jenna will provide those. I do want to mention that I do have a hard stop close to 1 o'clock that I have to go to another meeting for. So today we're going to be talking about a strategy for helping students improve their fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. As we talk, however, keep in mind that there's more to reading development than just fluency, and the strategy I'll be talking about and demonstrating is not a total reading program. But let's picture a non-fluent reader. Think of a specific student. Take a moment to imagine what the student sounds like when they're reading. What are some of the characteristics of a non-fluent reader? So just take a moment and think about that. So here are some characteristics. A non-fluent reader is going to be reading haltingly, slowly. They will be uncertain about sight words. They'll read word by word, ignore punctuation, and make a lot of errors. So without even using an assessment tool, you can identify non-fluent readers simply by listening to them read very often. So once we've identified our non-fluent readers, how do we get them to become fluent? Students become fluent by practicing their reading. Some students learn to read fluently without explicit instruction, and for others, fluency doesn't develop in the course of a normal classroom instruction period. Research analyzed by the National Reading Panel suggests that just encouraging students to read independently is not the most effective way to improve reading achievement. Too often, simply encouraging at-risk students to read doesn't result in increased reading on their part. Often, these struggling readers may retrieve a book with mostly pictures and just look at the pictures. Or they'll choose a difficult book so they'll look like everyone else while they're pretending to read. Even if at-risk students do read, they read more slowly than the other students. In a 10-minute reading period, a proficient reader who reads 200 words a minute silently could read 2,000 words. But in the same 10 minutes, an at-risk student who reads 50 words a minute would only read about 500 words. This is equal reading time, but certainly not an equal number of words read. Now consider how that disparity in number of words plays out over the course of a year. So what can we do? These students need to practice reading, but just asking them to read on their own often doesn't work. The National Reading Panel has concluded that a more effective course of action is for us to explicitly teach developing readers how to read fluently step by step. I'll explain how in a moment. But first, why focus on fluency? For many years, educators have recognized that fluency is an important aspect of reading. Over 30 years of research indicate that fluency is one of the critical building blocks of reading because fluency development is directly related to comprehension. Here are the results of one study that show how oral reading fluency correlates highly with reading comprehension. Why are reading fluency and reading comprehension so highly correlated? Dr. J. Samuels, a professor and researcher well known for his work in fluency, put forth a theory called the automaticity theory. According to Dr. Samuels, people have a limited amount of mental energy. If you want to multitask or to become proficient at a complex task such as reading, you first need to master the component tasks so you can do them automatically. For example, a reader who has to focus his or her attention on decoding words may not have enough mental energy left over to think about the meaning of the text. But a fluent reader who can automatically decode the words can instead give full attention to comprehending the text. To become proficient readers, our students need to become automatic with text so they can pay attention to the meaning. So how do we explicitly teach students to read fluently? The National Reading Panel found data supporting strategies that improve fluency, comprehension, and reading achievement. The first strategy is teacher modeling. Research demonstrates that various forms of modeling can improve reading fluency. Examples of teacher modeling include the teacher reading a passage and the child reading it back, mimicking the phrasing and intonation. Or the student reading along with the recording, again, mimicking the phrasing and intonation. Another technique that research has shown significantly builds reading fluency is repeated reading. In fact, the National Reading Panel says this is the most powerful way to improve reading fluency. This involves simply reading the same material over and over again until accurate and expressive. And the third technique is progress monitoring. You give students a specific individual reading goal and you tell them exactly how you're going to know they've met it. Then you give them the means to measure how they're doing. Finally, you make it simple enough that they'll know they've met their goal even before you do. This progress monitoring is what motivates students to practice reading the same story over and over until achieving mastery. And we've combined those three techniques into the Read Naturally strategy. And we've delivered that strategy with our program called Read Naturally Live. It's the way we put the strategy into practice. In addition to the research-based strategy, the web-based program offers motivating content for reluctant readers from first grade through high school, high-interest nonfiction text, built-in accommodations for native Spanish speakers. We have 3 different curriculum series with 23 separate reading levels. You can customize the program to meet individual student needs. We have detailed reports to assist you in tracking student progress. You can use the program to work with students one-on-one or in groups. And as I'll talk about a little bit later, it's a web-based program, but we also have ways for you to modify to make it even more suitable for distance learning. The benefits for teachers include the research-based, highly effective reading intervention based on our reading strategy, a full range of levels for differentiating instruction. It's well suited for RTI and MTSS, specifically for tiers 2 and 3. In addition to fluency, it supports foundational skills including phonics, vocabulary, and comprehension. It's easy to implement, and again, it's adaptable for distance learning requirements. The curriculum is organized into reading levels, and then the levels are organized into what we call series. So as you can see, the sequence series has levels beginning with 1.0, moving up to 8.0. These are roughly equivalent to a reading level as it relates to fluency. In each of the sequence series levels, we have 24 high interest nonfiction passages. The phonics series supports fluency, but also has a component built in that provides additional support for students needing phonics skills. And then our idiom series is suitable for students who would benefit from some practice with American language idioms. So you have access to all three of those series and all the levels that you see on this slide. On the sequence series, we also have the addition of a Spanish read-along. So the text is provided in Spanish, and a Spanish-speaking narrator reads the passage to the student, and is particularly useful for native Spanish speakers to assist them with comprehension. So I want to talk briefly about setting up the workspace and the schedule that we recommend, because this is a question that comes up frequently. You can use this program in a variety of environments. So you can use it obviously in the classroom. You can use it in a computer lab, extended day program. You can use it at home, and I'll describe that in a little bit. You have, I'm sorry, our recommendation is to have one adult, that could be either a teacher or a parent, one adult to student ratio of approximately 1:8. So once you get beyond that 8 students limit, you can still do it, but it becomes a little bit more challenging for the adult to manage. And then as far as scheduling is concerned, we recommend 30 minutes per session, 3 to 5 days a week. So that's a standard intervention period. Students should be able to complete one of the lessons, one of the stories in the level in about 30 to 60 minutes if you're following our guidelines. And then as I mentioned, I will be speaking about adaptations that you can do within the program to adjust it to be suitable for learning outside of the classroom. So if a teacher is not present in the same building or in the same room, you can set up parents as assistants, or the teacher can do some screen sharing and use the remote control function that's built into Zoom, for example. You can make adjustments to the story options screen, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, to either turn on or off certain steps or make them more independent, not requiring a teacher to be present for one of the steps. You can use screen sharing, as I mentioned earlier, and I'll talk more about that. Regardless of where the student is, you still can and should monitor student progress. And because it's a web-based program, you can run reports no matter where the student is. And then there are tools built into the program for communicating easily with parents. So what I'm about to do is step out of my PowerPoint slide and show you how a student experiences the program. And we're going to run through these specific steps. So what I'm showing you here are images of our poster that we provide for students to learn how to use the program. This poster is also useful for parents to learn how students experience the program as well. And we have a version of this in both English and Spanish. There's a free PDF version of this out on our website, and I'll show you where you can find that in a little bit. But I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint. And let's see, I have to find my other, bear with me here for a moment. And you should be able to see my Read Live welcome screen, my home screen. And you can see here I can either log in as a staff member or a student. The staff member module is where you make adjustments to how the program works for students, where you run reports, etc. And I won't go into that just yet, but what I'm going to do is click on student, and again, I'll show you a student's experience using the program. First thing I'm going to do is just turn off my little password program here. And first I'll show you what happens if a student has not been placed into the program. In other words, students have to be assigned a reading level and a goal.
Before you can begin working, your teacher must assign you a series, level, and goal. Please tell your teacher.
So in this case, students would have to wait for the teacher to conduct a placement test. A short test takes a few moments. And again, if student and teacher are not in the same facility, you can use a program like Zoom or Google Meets to do this placement test. So what happens is the student and the teacher share a screen, or they're sitting next to each other, and then the teacher selects a potential reading level for the student. This is a 4th grader, has them read the story for 1 minute to receive a words correct per minute score. Teacher enters in the number of missed words, and then based on that score, the program makes a recommendation as to the appropriate reading level for the student and the appropriate goal, words correct per minute goal for the student to reach as a requirement for passing the story. I'm not going to run through that now, but I just wanted to show you the short assessment that has to happen before students can begin using the program. Once students have been placed, they can work mostly independently. So in this case, we're going to, I'm going to run through a scenario where a student starts using the program, teacher or parent is not present, they log in.
Please select a story.
And as I said, there are 24 nonfiction passages. When a student begins working, they choose the story that they want to work in. And you can see 3 of the stories have been already completed. I'm going to work in the zebra story.
Zebras.
Are you ready to start this story? Click each key word to learn the word and what it means.
So students can use this program on regular computers, on Chromebooks, and iPads. Up at the top, you'll see the steps that students have to complete before they complete the passage. And the first step is keywords, where they're introduced to key vocabulary words and their definitions. By clicking, I'll initiate that step.
Pattern. A pattern is a set of things, like colors, shapes, lines, or sounds, that is repeated. Recognize. Recognize means to know what something is after seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, or tasting it. Alex knows Mom is baking cookies because he can recognize the smell coming from the kitchen.
So I should say this is a level 3.5. You can see the level and the goal up at the top. All of these vocabulary words will appear in the passage. And if you look in the lower right-hand corner, the next button is dimmed and is not clickable. Students will not be able to move to the next step until they've completed the objective for the step that they're currently on. In this case, they have to click on all 4 of these words before they can move to the prediction step.
Species. Species are groups of plants or animals that are alike in certain ways. Mammals include many species, such as lions, giraffes, and humans. Zoologists. Zoologists are people who study animals.
Click a word again, or click Next to continue. Look at the story title, keywords, and picture. Write a prediction about the story. Then, click Next to continue.
So the prediction asks the student to write something about the story in their own words based on their prior knowledge and or the vocabulary, picture, and keywords. And the title. So students have to write something in this box. and they have 2 minutes to complete that text before they're required to move to the next step. Teacher can adjust how much time students have to complete the step, or they can turn it off depending on what they want the student to focus on. Teacher can always go up to the teacher menu to make adjustments to how this program works for the student. There's a screen called Change Story Options, which allows the teacher to make adjustments. So if I wanted to change prediction from 2 minutes to 4 minutes, this is where I would do that. Or if I wanted to turn off the retell step, I can do that here. Or turn on Spanish read along, I can do that here. So all of this is customizable by the teacher.
Look at the story title, keywords, and picture. Play Wordtastic while you wait for your teacher. Click the best answer to score points. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you.
The next step is cold timing, where the student reads the passage for 1 minute, cold, they've never read it before, to receive a fluency score. The teacher typically would have to be there with the student to do that cold timing. And if that requirement is set, the student has this waiting time activity that they can play while they're waiting for the teacher to arrive, or the parent to arrive if they've been set up that way. But you can always change the program so that students don't have to wait for a teacher or parent, and they can do the cold timing independently. But in this scenario, the student is waiting. They can play this synonym and antonym word matching game, where they get points for correct answers. They can also click on words.
Assignment. Category.
To hear them spoken aloud. When an adult is available to conduct cold timing, they'll enter in their password credentials.
Click Start Timing and begin reading. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you. Click Finished if you finish reading before the bell sounds.
So for cold timing, again, the objective is to receive a fluency rating, a fluency score of words correct per minute as a starting point for measurement, and for the student to be introduced to the story and to start identifying words that they may have trouble with and that they may need to practice. So when we're ready to begin, we'll click on Start Timing. Again, this can be done remotely if you're using a remote control program like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, or there's ways of doing screen sharing where you can log in as the student and do the timing that way if you're not in the same physical space. If you are in the same physical space, you simply sit next to the student while they do the timing. When they encounter a word that they're having trouble with,
Pattern. Purposes.
those words should be clicked on
Camouflage.
so that they can be identified and pronounced for the student, so that, again, they know which words they'll need to focus on in the upcoming read along and practice steps. After 1 minute is over, a bell will ring in the background. That will indicate that the timing is complete. Student will click on the last word they've read correctly, or the teacher can do that. And then that will give us a score, again, to measure progress against.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded. Click Next to continue.
So that's our score, 89 words correct per minute.
Look at how many words you read correctly per minute. Click Next to continue.
So you can see there's a significant gap of about 30 words between the students' cold timing and their goal. So students will have to close that gap as a requirement for passing the story.
Click Start Read Along to read along, or click Next to continue.
So when I introduced the Read Naturally strategy, I mentioned those 3 techniques of read along, repeated reading, and progress monitoring. Or I'm sorry, teacher modeling, repeated reading, and progress monitoring. So the read along step is that teacher modeling piece. So students will read along with a fluent reader, mimicking their phrasing, their expressiveness, etc. Typically, they would do that 3 times and read naturally. So in other words, they'd have to read the entire passage from start to finish 3 times along with a narrator, while the narrator's pace and expressiveness increases after each read along. I've changed that requirement in our story options, so we'll just do that for the first few sentences.
Most people know that zebras are wild horses with stripes and that they live in Africa. But did you know that of all the zebras in the world, no 2 look exactly alike? Each zebra has a unique pattern of stripes.
Click Start Read Along to read along again.
So hopefully you could hear the narrator's expressiveness and her pace. Students would be reading along aloud, quietly, whisper reading, with the narrator as an important aspect of that building automaticity. In between each read along, students can click on vocabulary words. Some of these we saw earlier, like species and zoologists, and some of these are new, like camouflage.
Camouflage. Camouflage is a way of hiding something by making it look like the things around it.
Once they've done all 3 read-alongs, the next button would display, allowing them to move forward.
Click Start Timing and begin reading. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you. Click Finished if you finish reading before the bell sounds.
And the practice step is the other technique, or another technique in the Read Naturally strategy, which is the repeated reading technique, where students read the same passage over and over again, gradually increasing their accuracy, gradually increasing their pace or rate. These steps are all done independent of the teacher. The only time that a teacher was required up to this point was the cold timing step. And remember, you can change that to be student independent. In other words, for a teacher not to be required for that step. Because this is being done independently, we do have a check built in here. So if a student is reading much more quickly than is possible, or indicates that they're reading much more quickly than is possible, they'll see the following message.
Your score is much higher than your goal. Please read the story again.
So they'll see practice number 1 not scored in the scores box. And again, that's something that you can also view in the reports or if you're monitoring the student. The point of practice is, again, to comply with that technique of repeated reading. Students reading the same passage multiple times, but also a very important part of this is for students to practice their difficult words. So if they had words that they struggled with earlier, now is a great time for them to practice by clicking on those words.
Pattern. Purposes. Recognize.
And this technique also has the added benefit of tracking those difficult words in the reports so that you can view them after a student has completed the passage, and again, look for issues that student may need support with. Students have to meet their goal before being allowed to move to the next step. So in other words, in this case, students will have to read 120 words correct per minute before being allowed to move forward. So they may have to practice 3, 4, 5, sometimes 10 times.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
Before they're allowed to move to the next step.
You've reached your goal. You've finished all your practices. Click Start Timing to practice again, or click Next to continue.
So once I've met my goal, I can move to the quiz.
Click the best answer, and then click Next.
The next 2 steps, quiz and retell, allow us to measure comprehension. So once we feel somewhat confident that the student's fluency scores are where they would need to be for the student to pass, we want to, again, reach back to that comprehension component because remember, fluency and comprehension are so closely related or so closely aligned. We want to make sure that they are also understanding what they've been reading up to this point. So we have a quiz which contains multiple choice and short answer questions. They'll receive audio feedback when selecting the multiple choice answers. So that sound indicates that the student answered that correctly, so they'll get that feedback right away. And that sound indicates that they've not answered the question correctly, and they'll have to go back later during the past activities to re-answer that question. And keep in mind too that they do have access to the story text as well as all of the vocabulary that they can use to answer their questions. And you'll have anywhere between 5 to 9 quiz questions within a Read Naturally quiz. There's also open-ended questions that students have to respond to by typing. There's sorting and matching, fill in the blank, etc. Same types of questions that students will see in standardized tests. And these are vocabulary questions, just as this close type question is as well.
Hey, Ben, as you're filling that in,
Yeah.
Somebody asked a question, is there a placement test in Spanish?
That's a great question. Right now, we do not have a placement test in Spanish. Keeping in mind that the point of Read Naturally is to teach students how to read fluently in English. If they can't start by completing an English placement test, then they need to work on other skills before they can use the program.
Retell or summarize the story in your own words. Click Review Story if you want to read the story again.
So another way that we measure comprehension is through the retell. It's basically asking the student to summarize the story in their own words. They can view the story, but they can't keep the story up and visible the way that they did in the quiz for the retell. And what they type is subjective. We don't evaluate, the program does not evaluate what they're typing. The teacher will have to review that again during the past activity step.
Now you're ready to pass. Read the story and play Wordtastic until your teacher comes to pass you on this story.
So
Click Start Timing and begin reading.
This is the pass activity step. This is a very important step. This is the final assessment. It's the only step that the student must have an adult present for. Again, teacher, or it can be a parent if you've set up a parent to do that. So someone would have to come and click Conduct Past Activities. And now we're going to run through a series of tasks to determine if a student is ready to move beyond the story or whether they need to do some additional work, some remedial action. So again, teacher and student sit together in front of a computer screen, or you can do computer sharing, screen sharing using Zoom or Google Meets, etc. So we'll click on Start Timing, and what the teacher is doing here is evaluating the student's rate, in other words, how fast they are reading, but also, and perhaps even more important, how accurately they're reading, and also their expression. So those are the 3 hallmarks of fluency: rate, accuracy, and expression. So we're going to listen to the student read. After 1 minute, we'll click on the last word that they've read correctly, but we'll also enter in the number of missed words and enter in their expression on a scale of 1 to 4. So you're listening for any words that they've stopped on for more than a few seconds, stumbled over, or skipped. So stop, stumble, skip rule, that's something that you can teach your kids. If
And
students,
this
yes.
seems like a good time to ask this question. Is there an option to print the story in paper form for students to use?
Absolutely, yes. You can print out the story along with the quiz questions.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
From within the program, you can print out the story and the quiz questions. In the phonics series, we have a word list that's also printable from within the program. And the vocabulary words, even though they're not included in the printout, they are out on our website, and you can just download and print out the vocabulary as a glossary PDF file. So Student read up to the word bodies. They missed 3 words. So 3 is the limit of the number of words that they can miss and still pass. And the expression scale, 1 to 4, they have to score 2 or higher on that scale. Students see their progress in this graph. Cold and hot timing scores stacked in this bar graph. And again, that's that progress monitoring piece that students respond to very well, and that's part of our strategy. Teacher evaluates any open-ended questions. The answer key is built into the screen here. You can also request a full answer key. If you're using the program and you want one of those, just email me. And then the retell, as I said, also needs to be evaluated and is a requirement for passing. This summary of work is something that you can print out from here or from the staff module where you're doing the record keeping. But this is a great opportunity for you to discuss how the student progressed through this story. There are 5 requirements for passing. They did not meet the quiz requirement. So as we'll see, we'll have to do some additional work. And you can review results in a variety of ways in the reports that are available. I want to point out in the quiz, we measure specific comprehension skills, and you can see how they performed in these specific skills and support students in their area of need. So I did not pass the quiz, so I'll have the students go back.
Click the best answer and then click Next. Congratulations! You passed this story. Click Done to finish.
So I've met all my requirements now. I passed. I get a certificate which can be printed from the staff module or emailed home to parents.
Please select a story.
And now that Zebras is passed, I have to move to a different story in this level. And again, I do that continually as my fluency and comprehension scores increase. And I can either complete all 24 stories on the level, or the teacher can look at the reports and determine that I can be moved up as soon as the teacher deems that's appropriate for me. So that's how the sequence series levels work. The phonics levels work a little bit differently because there's some phonics support built in. There's a short phonics lesson that they complete, a word list exercise that they complete, etc. But essentially, those steps are the same throughout Read Naturally Live. Are there any questions right now? Otherwise, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. Okay. All right, so you should see my posters again. So very quickly, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but for those of you that don't have Read Live yet, a quick and easy way to get it, and this is in that resource handout that was uploaded for you. You can just sign up for a free trial, no limit on student licenses. It's currently 60 days, but if you email me, we can extend it to 90 days, and then you can try it out for yourself. And here's just a quick overview of what you would need to do, or what we would recommend that you do to get up and running quickly. But again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. I want to get into the adaptations that I mentioned earlier for distance learning. I'm going to run through each one of these and talk about them. And if you have any questions, again, this is probably most pertinent for those of you if you're currently using the program. But I mentioned that you can set up parents as assistants. What does that mean? Normally, teachers use the program in the classroom, but with school closures, a lot of our teachers are asking whether parents can work with their child at home for the past activities, for example. And yes, you can. There's a way for the account administrator, the person that's setting up the program, to create a new role. A role is like a teacher, or an administrator, or a school coordinator, but there is an assistant role that allows a parent to time their child for the cold timing and past activities, print stories, print awards, etc., but does not allow the assistant to go in there and look at student data or make changes to students' requirements, like their goals or their levels. So for those of you that want to do that, this is a great option, and certainly can take some pressure off the teacher, but the downside is it puts some more pressure on the parent. So if you have parents willing to do that or wanting to do that, this is a great option for you all. Another accommodation for distance learning is, I mentioned earlier, I've been mentioning how you can share and control screens. So screen sharing, I think we're all familiar with. That's basically what we're doing now. I've got PowerPoint running and I'm sharing that with you. You can do the same thing with student can share their screen with you if you want to do the timing. But remote control is another great option, which basically allows you to go in there and manipulate the student's screen by, for example, starting the timing or clicking on difficult words during the past activities. That is an option available to you in Zoom and in Microsoft Teams. In Google Meets, there's another program called Chrome Remote Desktop, which also allows you to do that, but is a little bit more cumbersome because it's not built into Meets per se. I have some resources for you about that. We've written up some articles on our website about how to do past activities remotely. And then I've also done a complete webinar recording on using Relive in a distance model that goes more deeply into that, and specifically using Zoom. Another accommodation is adjusting story options. I showed you that screen earlier where you can turn off the prediction or change the amount of time that they have, but you can also change whether students need a teacher for the cold timing or not. And that may be useful when teachers are extra stretched or parents might not have time to do the cold timing. So it's a little less accurate, but sometimes we have to make some trade-offs, and that would be one trade-off that we think would be worth doing, is letting the student do their own cold timing. And again, here's a reminder of what that screen looks like. If you notice on the left side of that screen, that bottom option, cold timing, you can simply change the drop-down from teacher required to student independent. That's how you would do that. And then again, past activities. Those are the tasks that I performed at the very end of my demo, where we timed the student, where we reviewed the quiz questions and the retell, etc. So how do you manage that? There are three options that we have for you. Number one, make the parent an assistant and they can do those past activities. Use remote control. As I said, Zoom has that option for you. But if you can't use Zoom, again, Google Meets, there's a little bit of a cumbersome trade-off there, but you still could do that. And finally, if remote control is simply not possible for security reasons or because the student is using an iPad and we can't control an iPad remotely, you can still log in as the student, share your screen with the student, and run the past activities that way. And again, we have more information about how to do those, how to perform those accommodations out on our website. The PDF that I shared with you has links directly to the places on our site that gives you more information about that. Remember, you can always monitor student performance no matter where the student is, because it's a web-based application. We keep track of everything that the student is doing in the program. There's a couple of times when you'd want to do monitoring. Number one, after they've completed several stories, after they've been placed. And the reason we do that is because we want to make sure that the student was placed appropriately. Placement only lasts for a few minutes. In other words, you do a quick placement and then you let the students get up and running. But we want to make adjustments, right? So if once we've gathered some data after several stories, we take a look at the reports, and there's a process that we've documented for you to take a look at the data to see if you need to make a slight tweak up or down on the score or on the level. And then you also want to keep students challenged over time. And then we have a full raft the reports for that. Here's the most common report that we use, which is called Students at a Glance. And as you can see, you can run reports against multiple students at a time. And then it provides you with data about their cold and hot timing scores and their comprehension, quiz percent correct, and words used in retail. So it's a nice comprehensive report, but we have something like 10 different reports that you can view, slice and dice the data in a variety of ways. And then finally, school to home communication tools. You can print out so many different ways of communicating with parents, including welcome letters, progress letters. The welcome letters, actually, you can either print in English or Spanish. Progress letters only in English at this time. We're working on a Spanish version of that as well. And then awards, you can print out the story, etc. Remember, if you're, obviously you know this, but if you are working remotely, student is at home, you can always use Zoom or Google Meet to discuss the reports or demo the program for the parent as well. I'm gonna leave you with this really great resource page on our website, which contains a variety of videos, user guides, recorded webinars. We have a free online training course that you can take, which lasts about 3 hours, and you get a certificate afterwards that you can use for PD. So all of that is free. And again, the link to that is on this on the resource page. It's just, or you could just go up to Read Naturally and search for Read Live Help. This is a great resource for you, and it's absolutely free whether you have the program or not. And I'm going to stop here, Jenna, if you have other questions, or if you want to talk more about other things.
Yep,
Yeah, go ahead.
we had a few questions come through about the free trial offer, so I want to go through those real quick.
Yeah.
So Tammy asked, can we begin the free trial when we return back to school? There are several of us on here from our district and would like to ask our SPED director if this can be purchased for our SPED intervention classrooms.
Yes, you can start your trial whenever you wish. If you have any questions about that, just email me, ben@readnaturally.com, or you can include comments in the trial registration form.
Okay, so I think that's going to probably answer the next two. Jackie, when does the free trial end? Did you say it was a 60-day, but they get 90
It's normally
if they contact
60.
you?
If you contact me, I'll set you up with a 3-month trial.
Perfect.
And again, you can use that with as many kids as you want.
Perfect. And so when they return to school, i.e. this fall, that will still be available?
That is correct.
Perfect. Okay.
And I also want to mention one thing, Jenna. In the fall, we will also be releasing an addition to Read Live, which is a component of our word warm-ups program, which is a set of phonics tools for your lower level readers. So that will just be included free. So again, that might be a good time to start your trial because you'll also have access to word warm-ups as well.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so that took care of those questions. If anybody else has any other questions, please go ahead and throw those in the chat window now. Otherwise, I will go through a few things here at the end. We'll answer those final questions if anything comes through, and then we will pick our winner for the gift certificate today. So let me start my video here so you're not just hearing a voice. So thank you, Ben. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you to everybody who participated in the tweeting. I'm still watching to see things come through here. We're still finishing out our Teacher Appreciation Week here at IDEA, and tomorrow we have a fantastic webinar. If you participated in our winter one this past December, this is the Teacher We Love Teachers webinar giveaway. Actually, I'll share my screen.
Okay.
You're fine. Nope, I'll share mine. It's fine. Here we go. Now, just if I could click mine. There we go. Okay. So hopefully you all see that. So our webinar giveaway is tomorrow at noon. And what we do is we invite partners of ours to come in and tell you about some of their products and do giveaways. So it's just a awesome hour of giveaways. So come check it out. You can go on our website at ideaillinois.org/calendar, and that will be where you can register for that. I'll throw those links in here in just a second. Then if you are looking for other options of things to do with your students, I know that the school year is winding down now. We have been putting out a calendar for the last 2 months, I guess, ever since this remote learning started. And the calendar has all kinds of different activities that you can do with your students or that your students can do during their remote learning. So we've divided the calendar by days theoretically, but you don't have to do them in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But our days are social emotional learning, and then the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. So then we further broke that down by elementary level activities, middle school, and high school. These are both online and offline activities. So not everything here is online, but there's one activity for each of those categories each week, and definitely check it out. And if you haven't checked any of them out yet, go ahead, and now you've got, what is that, 1632 times 3, whatever that number is. But you've got all kinds of activities that you can do with your students. So that is on our Idea Home Learning page. So if you go to ideaillinois.org, and then under the Learn tab, I think it's the very first tab right now, is our at-home learning, which is our remote learning. And it's where we've been putting all of our resources, but that's where you'll find these calendars, and they're in PDF form. So just go ahead, check those out. The ones that are online are linkable, and then the ones that are offline obviously are not. It just gives you the instructions there. So definitely go ahead and use those. And so I think we are just about at the top of the hour. I think I need to add in, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I need to add into my little wheel of fun here. Anybody else? Let's see, we've got Darlene, we've got Audrey, we've got Jacqueline already. So I'm going to share one more time here. And I'm going to share my wheel of fun. So here is my names. These are initials of the people that have been participating in our giveaway today for the $100 gift card. I'm going to spin it, and we're going to let the wheel decide who wins. So AL is Audrey Lightsey. Oh, wasn't that fun? It's the first time I used this one. So Audrey, if you don't mind private messaging me in the chat your email address, and then that way I will be able to connect you for the prize today. So I'm going to put a few links in the chat right now. The first is the ever important PDH. So there is the link for your PDH. Just go ahead and copy and paste. Oh, this thing's still talking to me. There we go. So go ahead and put that link in to get your PDH for today. And then I am also going to throw in 2 more links, which is our home learning and our calendar link. So just so you guys have those as well, I just popped those in there as well. So without further ado, we're at the top of the hour again. Ben, thank you so much. This was fantastic. I think everybody truly appreciated these resources, and knowing that it's going to be available this fall too, when everybody gets back to school, is awesome. But if you guys want to try it out now while we're still in this remote learning period, definitely Ben gave us a lot of great resources to go ahead and do that. So Ben, thank you very much. Everybody else, thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks,
and
if
you do have any other questions, please throw them in the chat. And Ben, did you happen to throw your, I'm going to stop sharing here. Did you happen to throw your email address in the chat?
I'm going to do that right now, but it's also in that resource.
In the doc, perfect.
Yeah, but
okay.
I'm going to do that right now. And then I do have to bounce. So thanks again, everyone. I appreciate you. Have a great summer if I don't speak with you, and hopefully we'll connect again in the fall, if not sooner.
Great. Thanks, Ben. I know you got to go. Take off.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much, everybody. And let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, you've got Ben's email, so go ahead and email him with any other questions. Audrey, I will connect with you to get that gift certificate to you. So congratulations. Thanks, everybody.